Stephen A., my take is this is how much I have long thought of Becky Hammon, not only as a player, but as a leader on and off the court. I can see her one day being the NBA's first female head coach. And now she's in the perfect spot and on the fast track to grow into just that. And I want to make this perfectly clear. In no way, shape, or form was this a PR move on the part of a team that does not make PR moves. The Spurs don't need to make a splash. They don't care about that. They hired Becky Hammon because they already highly respect her and they love the way she thinks. They want her as a part of their team as a full-fledged assistant coach because she basically did this job last year. I don't know if anybody noticed. She sat behind the bench for most home games last year. And Greg Popovich, who was, by the way, the coach of the year last year, asked her to attend all the coaches' meetings all the way through last year's playoffs. You know why? He encouraged her to speak up, to disagree if she chose to, because he loves her fresh perspective on basketball. You want to know why the San Antonio Spurs players have always highly regarded her? They have watched her play because she played for San Antonio's WNBA team and she practiced in their facility. They know her game. They know she wasn't the quickest or the fastest or the most athletic at about 5 feet 5 inches tall. She was an undrafted free agent point guard. But you know what they know? She's like them. She's a Spur. She was always the smartest and the toughest and the most competitive, and it translates into what they believe and what they know. And they love her international perspective on basketball because in the off seasons, she played in Russia. Then she played for Russia's Olympic team. She has a global view of basketball just like they do. So in the end, this was a legit hire. And one day, I think you're going to hear bigger and bigger things from one Becky Hammon.
I appreciate everything that you just articulated, but I would submit to you that none of it was necessary. I think that Greg Popovich, at this stage in his career, is basketball royalty. He is the closest thing to what I call E.F. Hutton. He speaks, I listen. It's just that simple. When he elects to speak, of course, which is not often. The man has accomplished so much, and when you consider what he's accomplished and all the rings that he's ultimately achieved, he's basketball royalty. It's just that simple. But the one other point that I'd like to make about Becky Hammon, and again, her resume speaks for itself, as you just articulated. I don't care if she didn't have that resume. The fact that Greg Popovich picked her would be good enough for me. But also, let's keep in mind, in the interest of fairness, in the WNBA, there are 6 men who serve as head coaches in the WNBA. You would think that with the NBA, they'd leave the WNBA to the ladies. But they didn't do that. The men infiltrated that too. So why can't the women do that with the NBA? In the NBA, we have Dan Hughes coaching the San Antonio Spurs. That's a man. I don't think there's a woman named Brian Agler who coaches the Seattle Storm. I don't think there's a woman whose name is Fred Williams for the Tulsa Shock. I'm sorry. We know Michael Cooper is with the Atlanta Dream, even though he should be in L.A. as far as I'm concerned. We got my boy Bill Laimbeer with the New York Liberty, who should be coaching in the NBA, by the way. And, of course, there's the Washington Wizards, Mike Thibault, whatever his name is. None of those dudes, those are not women. They're men. And so, to me, if men can coach in the WNBA, why can't women? And what I appreciate so much about Becky and what she had to say, well, she talked about this. Let's pump the brakes and put things into perspective. Women don't need to play in the NBA because obviously the men are bigger, stronger, more athletic, all of this other stuff. But from a cerebral and intellectual perspective, one would argue that there's a lot of women out there who know a hell of a lot more than the dudes. So with that reality, this is long overdue. To me, This is not a big story because Becky Hammon is coaching in the NBA. It's a bigger story that it took this damn long
for it to happen.
She should have been here.
You mentioned Hughes.
Women should have been here.
Hughes was her coach and said that she was probably one of the best minds he ever had. I like that you said that you could totally see her being a head coach.
Absolutely.
Because Nancy Lieberman this morning on SportsCenter said she didn't think she could see it. And if you see that, if that's how much respect she has, and I know you know that organization
I know
well.
Nancy very well, too, and I think Nancy could be a head coach.
Yeah,
of course she could.
And obviously, and that's her
for a
dream
little
one
while
day, just for a bit.
Nancy's big time.
This is exciting that you guys say that. I think that you were right on, Skip. Her global view fits in good with the Spurs. So we see her being a head coach win, if you had to guess.
No, but this is as fast a track as she could have
be.
ever been on to what would be a huge breakthrough. It's not going to be next year or maybe the next, but who knows? I just think if anyone can get this done. How many assistants have gone from this staff to become...
On to
Let me
bigger things.
answer your question directly. Budenholzer in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Jock Vaughn in Orlando,
Yeah.
Brett Brown in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Obviously, they need to, in Orlando and Philadelphia specifically, they need to enjoy more success. But if the San Antonio Spurs pedigree, their tree, the guys that they've nurtured, if they accomplish a level of success, you're not going to be able to ignore Becky Hammon for much longer.
I agree. And now she'll be sitting in what they call still in San Antonio the Jacques Vaughn seat. Remember, for his 2 years, he sat behind the bench. He didn't sit next to Pop. So she'll probably start in that chair because there aren't enough chairs on the bench. But that's okay because Jacques got the Orlando job from that seat.